Welcome to the Creepin' Real Show, your one-stop shop for weird news, spooky, and otherworldly and paranormal shenanigans. We'll take a dive into what's going on in creepy pop culture. You can follow Creepin' Real Show on Twitter at creepin_it. You can email us at creepinitrealshow@gmail.com. You can also go to our website, creepinitrealshow.com. Without further ado, welcome to this week's episode.
Welcome to the Creepin' It Real Show, everybody. I am one of your hosts, Miss Moni, and today we also have with us Christy. How are you doing?
Hey, yeah, good morning. Waking up. Actually, just woke up like 20 minutes ago, so I'm going to have that raspy voice for everybody today.
Ooh, very nice.
I try.
Mr. Yardley, what's up with you?
Hey, I'm doing good. Saw Halloween yesterday. Ready to talk about it.
Oh, yeah. We do have a few trailers that I see that Yardley put up here, and I saw them before the Halloween movie. Was that where you got this idea? Did you see these same trailers?
Yeah, for me, I think the Pet Sematary trailer came out earlier, like last week, and I think the Curse of La Llorona.
Llorona. You pronounce it like a Y, Llorona.
Okay, La Llorona. That trailer, I think it came out at the end of the week. I thought that it was pretty interesting. So as far as the Pet Sematary trailer that's going down, it seems like Stephen King and a lot of other people are actually given the go-ahead to kind of redo some of these properties. I actually watched Pet Sematary recently, and then seeing this trailer, it looked kind of interesting. And, you know, sometimes the trailer music kind of gets you pumped up a little bit as well that they use for it. Mm-hmm. So I thought the trailer as a whole, including some of the choices that they used to kind of draw you in, was pretty cool for the Pet Sematary trailer. So did either of you find it interesting? Did it pique your interest to want to go see it?
I want to see it. I don't remember. I think I watched the original when I was like really young, like at slumber party, you know. So I don't really remember it, except for it wasn't that scary even for me then. John Lithgow is in this one, isn't he? I've never seen him in a horror film before.
I want to say that I have. I think it's on Amazon Prime, though, the original.
Okay.
It's either that or Netflix, but I think it's Prime. But yeah, go back and watch it. There's some funny. There's some moments that are supposed to be scary that are actually kind of funny, like the little kid or whatever. But yeah, I would say go check it out. Did it give you the feels, Christy?
You know what? Shame on me. I didn't watch the trailer. I didn't see it last night, and as I was getting ready this morning, I saw these videos. It didn't dawn on me that I needed to watch this. I watched I remember the old one very well. There was a few pretty creepy moments. I think that movie affects you a little differently as a parent than it does when you're a kid, because the kid comes back and it's just like you think your child, you know, is dead and never coming back, and then it's back and it's evil. It's like just a very like a horrible thing and a feeling as a parent. I watched this movie, I think Pet Sematary, probably about 5 years ago. I got just a hair up my butt and was like, I think I want to watch that because I saw it. And it's not scary, but it's just tragic scary, you know, dark and tragic. And that's the thing about Stephen King is each book he writes brings out a different feeling of horror that you didn't quite know existed. So I hope they can do good with the remake. I think they can. I think if you got the right people on it, it's possible. So I'm cautiously excited about this, I guess you could say. We'll see. And yeah,
I'm curious what they're going to rate it, because there's so many things that are PG-13, and we've talked about this before, that I kind of hope that they rate it R just to give it a little more bite, you know?
I think they will.
Yeah. And what about La Llorona? What did you think about that trailer, Yardley?
I thought that it was pretty cool, you know, because of the little controversy, I guess, that was out where they cast Linda Cardellini in the lead. I think that people are kind of beefing that they didn't cast a Mexican actress for it. I would have thought that would be a no-brainer if you're going to do this story. But when I initially watched the trailer, I was so busy kind of trying to take everything in quickly that I didn't even really notice who the lead actress was. And then after I read the People story about this, I kind of went back and looked. But I don't know about the popularity of Linda Cardellini. Have y'all seen her in any other things? I mean, I don't know. Maybe her recognizability, if that's even a word. Maybe that's the reason why they cast her. It's because she's recognizable, or do y'all know?
I am IMDbing her because I recognized her, and I'm not as good as you guys are at recognizing people's faces, or at recognizing like actresses' names and all that kind of stuff. But I don't remember her, like what I've seen her in. She was Velma or Wilma or whatever. That's where I've seen her because I've watched that movie 1,000 times with my kid. Okay, yep.
Wilma, what are you talking about? A Flintstones movie?
Yeah, the Scooby-Doo.
Scooby-Doo.
Velma. Oh, okay.
I don't know anything that she's done. I've never watched that Scooby-Doo movie. I've just looked her up.
Nobody's going to follow her from some kid's Scooby-Doo movie in the 90s. They'll tell you that.
Well, I don't know. I agree with you, Moni. I think that some of these things do need to be rated R to give them a little bit more, liberty to up the ante a little bit on it. And also, do you feel like this trailer, which I think was the one part of it was what they showed at one of the Comic-Cons. People had an opportunity to see it. Do you think that it's mostly going to revolve around the children?
Yeah, I do, because that's kind of the legend of La Llorona, but I also am curious if they've showed the best parts in the trailer. I just have a feeling they're going to have it rated PG-13. And yeah, there are so many fantastic, Hispanic actresses of the same age and ilk as this woman that I don't usually get I'm not offended, but I did see her and I knew I recognized her from somewhere. And I was like, that's an odd choice with all the people in the world that you could cast. So I don't know. I like this legend. It's kind of a creepy legend, but I don't know that it's going to be a well done film, unfortunately.
I've never heard of it, but every time y'all say this, I don't know. Am I the only one that thinks, la 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 la, Llorona? Because that's what I keep thinking every time y'all say that.
Well, just for the listeners, I mean, for those of you who might not be familiar with that, with that folklore, it's basically the ghost of a woman who lost her children and now cries while looking for them in a river. And often it causes misfortune to people who are near or people who hear her weeping. So that's pretty much. Yeah.
I feel like every culture has a similar legend. Like the lady in white is either crying for her kids or for a man that died or left her. So it's really just a kind of a similar thing. But that's why I think it will center around the children. And in that case, usually those type of movies are PG-13. So we will have to see.
Speaking of movies from other countries, I just want to reiterate again, I think we talked about this at Drunk Horror Story, but y'all got to go see Terrified. Yeah.
Oh, girls, yes.
Did you like it?
Yes, I did. And it was spooky as shit. And I've spent most of the week without anybody else in the house besides my kids. And so my Shiba, I've said this before, my dog sleeps under the bed. So now every time I hear noises, I'm pretty sure it's one of those creatures from that movie. Yeah.
It's
pretty good.
It's a Shudder original, but I bet you could probably find it on any other.
It's on YouTube now. Yeah.
Is it on YouTube? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really good. I do not like movies with subtitles. I just don't. I fight. The only time I ever watch them is if one of y'all make me watch them, and I always end up enjoying them. But I still, for some reason, when I see subtitles, I'm like, oh no. But here's what I've learned about myself, because when I watched this movie, I usually, when I'm at my house and I'm watching a movie, I pick up my phone. I do, while I'm watching the movie, I'm watching and reading something on my phone, and I'm doing something else. And with this movie, I had to put my phone down because I knew I was going to have to read what's going on. And I actually spent the entire movie not picking up my phone or doing something else. So I'm kind of like, you know what? Maybe I should actually be getting into subtitles because it keeps me from doing a million things at once, and I'm actually getting into the movie. And this is definitely one that is worth finding and reading subtitles for. It is probably, it's gonna go down as one of my favorites, like top 10 for sure. All overall in horror, I just thought it was so well done. And Yardley, you gotta watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I missed the Patreon plug first at the top of our podcast, but I do want to say that I will, I was going to post a reaction video for Halloween, and then I was also going to post a reaction video. Well, included in that is like what else you could watch if you're not going to the theaters, and I was going to definitely include Terrified in that.
Yeah,
so.
Great. I understand your reactions, but how did your boobs react to Halloween? That's what
I know.
Watchers really want to
know. I feel like it's Mean Girls. There's a 30% chance that this is already spooky.
Yeah. I also added a Haunted Roswell quick little, it's nothing professional. It's just me walking around some of our haunted hotspots in this area. I'm going to do another one about the old mill. All the other spots I did are around the old mill. This next one will be the old mill. It's going to have its own little post. So if you guys aren't on our Patreon, we're loading a bunch of crap on there. So get on there and see Moni's boobs. Not really. You don't see Moni's boobs. It's a running joke from her last movie review.
I mean, if we're running, we might be getting some black eyes. But anyway.
Yeah, that's true. So, and then in a few weeks, me and Moni will be together as one up in San Jose, hanging out at the Winchester and staying at a haunted hotel. And then I will be departing from my dear Moni and going up to Bovina, California, and seeing Where the Birds by Hitchcock was filmed. And this is going to be the mothership calling me home. It's one of my favorite movies, and I cannot wait to go up there and see that little town where it was filmed. So, so y'all will see all of this. See it, not just hear about it. See it if you get on our Patreon and sign up to the $5 or above tiers, because that's where we post all our good shit. So,
hey, did either of you try that Burger King Nightmare Burger yet?
Hell no, I don't want to crap black and green.
Well, it's actually bright green this year. It looks
worse.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry, I don't like McDonald's and I don't like Burger King. I don't have any interest in that stuff.
I didn't even know that they did that last year. I thought it was a new thing this year because apparently the bun is green this year and last year it was black or something. But it's got to be a ton of dye in there.
It's turned everybody's poo like greenish, blackish. People thought they were dying. It was.
That's not the marketing campaign you want either. I went to Burger King and I shit green. Like, ew.
It's like on St. Patrick's Day when you drink green beer and you pee green and you're like, what's happening to me?
Well, they're advertising it basically saying that I think they were saying it's been scientifically proven to cause nightmares, but I think this goes to Christy's point. The only way you'll eat that is if you're shit-faced drunk, and then if you eat it while you're shit-faced drunk, you're probably gonna have a nightmare from the bubble gut. So
and then enjoy all the consequences and bad decisions.
And then your next day party mud will be epic. It will be like, what have I done? You probably won't remember eating it, and then you next day is like, what have I done? I'm dying.
Well, rolling on into weird news then. Tell us about the White House being haunted by someone other than Donald Trump.
Right? Well, shocker. I'm sorry, but this is definitely not anything that is surprising to me personally. I think, of course it's haunted. It's how old is it? And Lord knows what the shit that's gone down in that thing for the last 250 years. So Jenna Bush Hager is convinced the White House is haunted, but she says they're friendly ghosts. And I think what she describes is one of those not necessarily haunting, but residual haunts, where it's just energy. Because she said they used to hear 1920s piano music as clear as day coming out of the fireplace. But she's like they came with good intentions. They were friendly ghosts. For me, I mean, I just thought this was interesting because it's the White House, and I of course think it's haunted. For me, that would be, it's haunted. so many people have lived in that house, so many people in there, so much energy going through it. Somebody had to have hung out, later. So, but this sounds more like residual, where you hear something or see something kind of play out over and over again, but it's not really a person. It's just residual energy left over. And sometimes it can play out in like a scene, almost like a hologram or like sounds. So that's kind of what I think is going on there. But I wish somebody could do a ghost hunt at the White House. I think that would be so cool.
That'd be cool.
Let's petition. They're crazy enough now, they might let us.
Yeah, there you go. Just put on a MAGA hat and they'll let you ride
Yeah,
in,
exactly.
so.
Get some equipment and be like, we're coming here to do a hunt. And they'll be like, MAGA, all right, go ahead, come in. And let's see
You're
what
one
we
of
can
us.
get. Yes. But
Very nice.
So, that's interesting.
So I have... Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I said that I thought it was interesting, and I wanna do it now. I'm gonna put it on my bucket list.
That'd be super fun. I wish they would, at least parts of it. I'm sure, security-wise, I'm sure they can't let you go certain areas, but it'd be kind of fun to do the rest. So
I wanna ghost hunt the war room.
There you go.
Anyway.
So I have weird news, and I'll just cover it briefly because it's overkill. Florida man accused of cutting off penis of ex's new boyfriend. So this is Florida, which is always the running joke out here about crazy things happening. And a man is being held on $1 million bond after he was accused of cutting off the penis of his ex's new boyfriend. So the judge ordered, he's 28 years old, and that's kind of sad too, to have your life basically be over. He went to all the trouble to fly from Atlanta to Chicago. He's a Tallahassee resident, flew from Atlanta to Chicago, rented a car, and arrived at the 26-year-old lover of his ex-girlfriend, saw him on the street, hit him on the head with a tire iron, carved initials into his leg. I mean, come on. This is like that song, Before He Cheats, where she's like doing that to the car. Carve your initials into the car and all these things, except for that he's doing it to a human being. And then he threw the man's penis over a fence, dragged him behind a parked car, and left him there. And then boarded a flight and flew back to Atlanta.
Wow. So I'm assuming that this guy also helped investigators by carving. He carved his own initial. It just says carved initials.
Nope,
so did he just basically tell on himself?
Yeah,
well, that's so smart.
But
dumbest criminal ever, also.
But here's the thing: it doesn't take back him, whatever he was doing with his ex-girlfriend. It doesn't.
No.
That's.
And this poor guy has permanent brain damage on top of obviously having lost some other stuff. And I hope this guy gets the maximum of whatever he can possibly get. But he's it doesn't talk about having a criminal record in the past or anything. It just.
Well, I'm wondering if he had known the guy from before, if they were friends or something, because how would he even know where that guy would live? So I wonder if there was, some of that going on. I mean, I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, kind of.
I'm saying, I'm not saying if he'd known him or whether or not that the guy should have went, to this extreme, but man, only a friend could probably piss you off that much.
Well, that's it. Like the forethought of like buying a plane ticket and traveling to another state just to go do this to somebody. It's just like, I don't know if I thought it was weird because of that. It's like people beat each other up all the time, but this is just next level. It's kind of that lady astronaut who was like driving to her.
Yeah. With her diaper on.
Yes. And she had all the stuff in her trunk ready for action. I mean, this is like totally premeditated.
I just got to say, if we ever struggle with finding weird news, you just come to the Miami News website and just look at the trending topics of Florida, and we'll have a pool of wonderful things to choose from. Because as y'all are talking, I'm like, trending. Venomous pus caterpillars make seasonal return to Florida. Massive rattlesnake slithers across Central Florida golf course. It's just like hysterical. I'm like, damn. Got some weird shit going on down there.
There is. There's I read a website once in a while called fark.com. It's pretty fun. And it just collects all kinds of different kinds of news, but they have a tag just for Florida because there's so many crazy things that happen.
Hashtag Florida.
Yeah, 100%. So, all right. Well, if y'all are ready, we're going to roll into our main topic of the day, which is the new Halloween movie. And for those of you who don't know, first of all, spoilers. We are going to go in detail through the movie. So if you have not seen it or planning to see it and you don't want to hear the spoilers, turn away now. Thank you for listening up until this point. For the rest of y'all, though, Halloween 2018 takes place 40 years after the original film. One hiccup right off the bat before I even get going for me, and that was I did watch the original film before I went to see this one this week. And they don't catch Michael at the end of the original. So it's kind of weird that he's like just in an asylum starting at the beginning of this one. Did either Yardley, I see you didn't get a chance to watch the first one. Did you get a chance to watch the first one this week? Yeah. What did you think about that continuity?
Honestly, I just, in my mind, it didn't even dawn on me because I figured within 40 years, he, of course, is going to get caught. But you're right, because they said he was only guilty of 5 murders. Yeah. So it's like, what happened? How did he get in the institution then if you're only counting the ones from the first movie, which I hadn't even thought of at the time. I kind of forgot. I mean, even when I watched it, this is really weird because the movie Halloween that I watched was not the original Halloween. So I was watching this movie that I think I had seen. I remembered parts, but I didn't remember the original Halloween. So I was kind of watching it as like a first time ever watching it, just from not having another Halloween movie in my head, and I'm not sure which one. I don't know. You watch so many, and there's like a million Halloween movies anyway. Somewhere I got things all mixed up and couldn't remember which was what. But yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I just hadn't really thought about it when I started watching this one.
Halloween 2 came out after the original, so I'm talking about still like in the 70s, and I have seen it. It is available, I think, on Shudder right now to watch. I did not get a chance to watch that one this week, but I do know that one, I think after that, it doesn't really have much to do with the original film. But that one, definitely, Laurie Strode is in the hospital and wakes up right where we left off in the first one with Michael still roaming the neighborhood. I don't remember how that one ends if they put him in an asylum then, but I don't think it would have hurt for this film to pick up where that one left off, just because that was still in the same canon. But at any rate, they chose not to do that. I'm curious as to why. If I were interviewing one of the creators of this one, I would ask that question. But in the meantime, the 2018 version opens at Smith's Grove Sanitarium. Podcasters Aaron and Dana arrive to meet with Dr. Ranbir Sartain. So Dr. Sartain, the new doctor studying the hospital's most notorious patient. Of course, that's Michael Myers, played by Nick Castle. Aaron and Dana came to interview him, and he's standing there chained. We see this in the trailer. He's silent in the yard. Of course, there's a lot of other patients around him. They try talking to him about the murder spree that he committed 40 years earlier. And Aaron takes out the mask, trying to get a response from Michael. But Michael remains silent while the other patients start, yelling and screaming. And it's a pretty tense little scene, but we did see it in the trailer. Did you get any new feelings off of this, or was it pretty much what we had already seen?
What, just as far as the situation that they had Michael in?
Yeah, because they showed the entire scene in the trailer.
Oh, well, one thing that I'm wondering, what is the timeline? Did they give any type of timeline to how long Michael had been locked
40
up?
years. So he was 6. I looked into that. He was 6 in the first one. He would be 46 years old now.
No.
Well, I'm talking about the amount of time had been incarcerated, though.
Yeah, 40 years.
So it was 40 years from the... Really?
He wasn't 6. He wasn't 6 when he was committed. The first murder, when he killed his sister, he was 6 years old through the entire movie?
No. His first murder. I was saying from the time the first movie ended.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I don't think... Well, I guess not, because they didn't really I guess you kind of mentioned it earlier when you were saying that you would have
Oh, I
liked to have
gotcha.
seen.
So he would be 60 something. Sorry. Anyways.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
like,
So he was
Yeah,
6
sorry.
when he killed his sister in the opening credits of the first film.
right.
And then I think he was 20 when they incarcerated him originally in the first film. And yes, this has been 40 years since that. Wait, math. It's 40 years since he killed 5 people. Yeah. So he would be in his 60s.
Yeah, that's
Kind of an old dude for all that he does in this one.
yeah. He's an old dude, and on top of that, the way that they had them outside and had them shackled up, I don't think that they're getting much exercise either. So you've got to take some of that strength away from Michael. Like, I don't.
Well, they did make the point to say that they were getting proper, perfect exercise and nutrition. The doctor says that right off the bat, that they take care of all the patients with nutrition and exercise. So I was like, too much exposition. They must be telling us this for a reason. For sure.
Absolutely. I totally missed that. I thought the scene in itself of when everybody was getting agitated when the podcasters came, I thought that was pretty cool. I started really getting sucked in because you're kind of expecting something crazy to happen when they get close to him, but it didn't.
I didn't watch the trailer because I felt like sometimes movies that I'm not interested in, I go in with 0 expectations. I don't watch the movie or the trailers because I don't want to. I kind of just want to walk in blind, and so I didn't watch the trailer. And but I thought it was a pretty solid, like, tense scene. I mean, it was cool when they pulled the mask out and everybody started to react. I hadn't seen that part, so it was, for me, having not seen it at the trailer, I thought it was pretty interesting. Their reaction to the mask and his lack of reaction, I guess.
Gotcha. Yeah, I thought the scene was really well done. I just also thought that we had, if you'd seen the trailer, which I had been anticipating this movie, I was excited, and they showed all of it. So it was like, nothing new here. I was like, maybe he'll actually say something we didn't see in the trailer. Nope. So we cut to Haddonfield, Illinois, which of course is the scene of the original film. And Aaron and Dana go to Lori's home, and she's all like, it's all locked down and everything. And they promised to pay her $3,000 for an interview. And ever since she survived Michael's attack, she's been preparing herself, guns, maximum security, hand-to-hand combat. And she's very paranoid, and it has put a strain on her family. We find out that she had lost custody of her daughter, played by Judy Greer, who's in everything these days.
Yeah.
She had lost custody of her daughter due to her just being obsessed with what had happened, and destroyed a marriage and all that kind of thing. So Erin offers Lori a chance to see Michael face to face and free herself of anger and hatred, but she cuts the interview short and sends them packing. So what it is we're preparing to have Michael Myers moved from his facility to a lower security due to budget cuts, which is very realistic. But why the fuck do they always move this guy like on Halloween Eve? Because that's exactly when he escaped. Like, this is a triggery night for this guy. And they're like, oh, October 30th, we better move Michael Myers now.
Yeah.
Did you guys find that going to the well too many times, or am I the only one?
I mean, the guy is, over time, no matter how bad someone is, even the legend of these people becomes kind of furry. You know what I mean? And I don't think that, after all those years, I just don't know if people are gonna. I think it's obvious throughout the movie that people weren't necessarily putting all of those things together. I mean, and if he's that, he's an old guy. You know what I mean? So all of the recipe for you to get caught slipping happened. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it was feasible to you. Okay.
But I don't know. I just don't think that, people were as on alert. I think if this guy was in his 30s or his 20s or early 40s, then you might want to put some of those things together, or maybe even transport him by himself.
And I think, like, a lot of the pieces of the beginning of the film where, you're right, Yardley, people had he was more like lore, like folklore, legend, than a real thing. I mean, the tales of back when he did this, and there was like questions on what was real and what wasn't, even back, it's 40 years ago. So I can see how everybody's just kind of like, he was kind of, except for a few, forgotten, and he was just another prisoner, patient of the system by now. And it wasn't really like, except for a few people who called him evil and all that, he was just a dude that was locked up with everybody else.
Okay. All right. So October 30th is the date, set to move Michael Myers yet again. And we meet Karen and her husband Roy and their daughter Allison, their teenage daughter. Allison wants to invite her grandma to a family gathering, but Mother Karen is hesitant to do that. And so we're seeing that strained relationship. And that night, Cameron joins Allison and her family for dinner. Laurie later joins. So Laurie shows up basically while the family's having dinner, not invited by Karen. So Karen's not super happy to see her in the first place. Allison had invited her. But Laurie goes to the table and starts pounding alcohol. And so Karen's not super pleased with that. And, Laurie takes off. Allison chases after her. How are we feeling about this strained family relationship? Do we care about them yet, or are we meh about the whole thing?
I mean, hell, I would have liked to have learned a little bit more about all of the things that led to that strain. They really wanted to emphasize, that the relationship was torn up, and I guess they were relying on us to kind of use our own imaginations to kind of think about what it was like. But I think if they wanted to focus that much on the family dynamic between Laurie, her daughter, and her granddaughter, I think that I would have liked to have seen those characters together a little bit more to kind of flesh out what happened in the past.
I thought I can kind of understand Laurie. I'm a hyper paranoid, dramatic person. So if I had had this crazy dude after me, time and time and time again, what that probably does to you. She was ultra paranoid, her stockpiling of weapons and her safety features and everything that we see later. Definitely could see me doing that. I was kind of torn between why is she still there? But I think it was that she was waiting, basically. But
that and her family's still in Illinois nearby.
Yeah.
So,
but I thought it was pretty understandable. I got and understood why there was probably this weird strain on them, because she's raising her daughter to protect herself, almost military style. And the daughter's like, bitch, what the hell is wrong with you? All these years of warning and paranoia, nothing ever happens. And so, I can imagine, Laurie lives her life constantly on edge, constantly paranoid, constantly thinking about what would happen if this guy got out, or if another, Michael Myers, roams around. And what that would do to her family, and her need to constantly keep it at the forefront. And everybody else is like, we're moving on with our lives here, people. I mean, he's gone.
Was Jamie Lee, how many of the follow-up Halloweens that we're pretty much told to ignore was Jamie Lee Curtis actively in? How many of those? Because wasn't there
she was
7?
in H2O, and she was in the second one, so that's at least 1, 2,
okay.
3.
So she was in 3. Well, it's interesting because the way the extremes that this character is going with being prepared, and it's understandable, to a certain extent, but she was really extreme, almost to the point of she had a problem thinking about Michael. It's you could tell that she thought about Michael probably more than he did about her. I think there's certain things that might trigger him into thinking about that. But the way that she was prepared in this movie, you would think that the other 2 movies that she was in counted. But if you're just counting this one, I mean, the very first one and this one, you're like, I don't know if somebody's going to be that, that obsessed with the situation.
She reminded me of what's her name from Terminator, the mom who's
Linda Hamilton.
Yeah. That's who she reminded me of in this film.
She actually was in more of these Halloween movies, because there was 1 and 2, and she actually was in 3, Season of the Witch, which I heard didn't have much to do with Michael Myers, though. And then there was H2O, but then there was a Resurrection movie that came out in 2002. But if you're supposed to be discounting that the other films existed, then only, I put air quotes, he's only killed 5 people up to this point and chased her down 1 time 40 years ago. So I'm kind of on the fence as I could totally see her reasons for being paranoid, but on the other hand, it's only the 1 time that this dude came after you and did not escape after, another time. So I don't know.
Yeah.
kind of feeling her family with at least attempt to get some therapy and start to move forward with your life.
No shit.
So now we have a father and son are driving together. They come across the prison bus crash with inmates walking loose on the streets.
Come
Father
on.
goes out to...
Go ahead.
Oh, father goes out to investigate, so they're all wandering around, which is super creepy.
Yes.
Like, you pull your car up and there's all these inmates walking around. The boy goes out armed with a rifle because he didn't see his dad come back. He walks onto the bus to find his dad and is startled by Dr. Sartain and accidentally shoots him, which that was a good shot, man. That kid, like, straight into the body, like, good job, except for whoops. Runs back to his car, and of course Michael Myers, just like he does in the original film, pops up from the back seat and strangles the kid to death. So no punches pulled. We're killing kids in this one, just like the original. And Officer Hawkins, who was in the first one, comes across the scene and finds Sartain, and who's still alive, and he also finds the father's body with his neck horribly twisted. So it is now Halloween Day. Aaron and Dana are on the...
I gotta say something about this part.
Sure.
This was one part of the movie that I was like, what? So you got your kid, you're driving down the road, you see a correctional facility bus has crashed, and there's a bunch of mental patients walking around the road. You get out of your car?
Call
Really?
911 also.
Seriously?
I was like, hey, kid. He told the kid to call the police. I'm like, call. Hey, it's a cell phone age. Call.
Really?
Like, at least start that process.
Come on. These guys are in a mental facility. This wasn't even a mental van. This was like a prison bus. You don't get out.
Yeah.
You drive the fuck away from there, and then you call that part. Okay, that part. A lot of those things I didn't notice that y'all are talking about, but this one I was like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
Give me I mean, that's just not smart in any capacity. Like, yeah.
I told you guys I walked into what turned out to be a robbery in progress at one point, but I walked up to a store that was supposed to be open and the glass door was broken and the door was like locked though still, and I like backed the hell out of there, got in my car. I got in my car and then called 911, and they were like, can you describe this? And I'm like, fuck no, I can't. I'm out of here. Like, and they were like, that's actually really smart. So, no, you don't mess with shit like that. You just don't. You're no hero. Okay, so, oops, my document is being wacko. Hold on there we go. So it's Halloween Day. Aaron and Dana are on their way out of town, but they stop to visit the grave of Judith Myers, which is a grave that we saw had been dug up in the first film. And she's Michael's sister that he had murdered when he was a child. They stop at a gas station, and again we get too much expose because Dana says, I have to go number 2, which no woman is just going to be like, hey, I'm going to go take a dump. Okay. Yeah. Especially when we find out what kind of woman she is. She goes into that bathroom and is like put off by how dirty all the stalls are. And I'm like, no woman that is afraid to use a public toilet is going to say, I got to go take a dump. So she goes in there, and I knew that was going to be her reason for being incapacitated, basically. So meanwhile, Aaron, who's kind of a blowhard, by the way, we'll talk about that in a minute, but he goes in and sees that 2 men are dead and runs off to find this Dana chick. And while that's happening, Michael enters the bathroom. We see his 2 big old boots. He stalks Dana until he gets to her stall, and he ends up dropping a bunch of bloody teeth in front of her. I frankly think that she took too long to like get off that toilet and at least say, at the very minimum, hey, person who's trying to get into my stall when there's 2 open stalls, like, fuck off, you know. But that's just me. So she's still sitting there all incapacitated on the toilet when he's dropping a bunch of teeth in front of her. So then he tries to barge in, and after we've seen her be too afraid to like go into the dirty stalls, she ends up having to crawl on the floor to try to survive. Aaron comes in and sees Michael and tries to fight him, but Michael starts bashing his head against the doors and the walls until he finally dies. And then Dana tries to defend herself, but Michael chokes her to death. And then he gets in their car. He gets to their car and gets the mask that they had in the trunk and puts it on. What do we think about this death scene?
Well, Aaron gave her plenty of time to crawl up out of there and
right? Michael gave her plenty of time to deal with something, and he's going stall to stall. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, but you could totally see that coming. I'm pretty indifferent about the podcasters getting killed off at this point, because there was a certain amount of annoyance that Aaron gave me, the way that he was like talking to, talking to certain people. So
it was self-important for sure.
Yeah, but it definitely was a nice jumping off point of Michael. I guess that was supposed to be like the moment once he was able to get his mask and all of that. But I don't know. I was pretty indifferent towards those characters.
Yeah, me too.
Did you think they were going to last longer, though, Miss Christie? Did you think that they were just going to be in the film more?
No, I mean, I didn't. They were annoying. I think they were purposely annoying. And so it was one of those where you feel like I felt bad when the kid died, but there I was kind of like, you kind of asked for it. You're stubbing your nose into things on Halloween, fucking with him, and I'm just kind of like, eh.
If anything, made me wonder. It was like, what fucking podcasters got $3,000 to pay somebody?
Pay off somebody.
We're doing it wrong.
Take the script and everything else. Yeah. Give us $3,000. We'll interview whoever you want.
But not on Halloween. I'm like,
no, apparently not.
You know, I mean, I thought it was kind of funny that they were podcasters. It just made me chuckle considering that we are podcasters.
So 2018 and
yeah. So it's like typical annoying podcasters shoving their face into things they don't need to be getting involved with.
Right.
It also seemed like they were kind of taking a dig at podcasting too, because he starts off and says we're podcasters. She's like, we're journalists. We got $3,000. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
like anybody gives a shit about that. Exactly. I mean, our job is to talk about stuff that's happened, but I don't see us like, I mean, yeah, we're going to the Winchester and having a good time, but we're not going to go to a criminal in a prison system and try to goad him into...
We're not going to shed any new light on a case that's so important for 40 years, and we're just not those people. So
that's not podcasters.
You have to probably have different credentials, for that, because most people, if you were to say you're a podcaster, they still wouldn't know what the hell that was.
Yeah, that's true. A what?
Can you imagine us being like, we're podcasters, we want to interview Scott Peterson on death row. They're going to be like, click.
Yeah.
They're not going to be like, oh, yes, please come talk to him. You guys are the, like, not therapists, not, attorneys, but the podcasters are going to get something out of him. I mean, come on. Like, I just... Right. I mean,
that's why that guy, the Aaron guy, was so self-important. I was just like, you gotta go, bro.
Exactly.
So Lori hears that the bus crash happened, knows Michael's on the loose, breaks into her daughter's house to show her that she's lacking security, and tells them to go to her house before Michael arrives. But of course, they're freaking out because we'll see in a minute, we don't know where daughter Allison is, the teenager. The evening arrives, the kids are trick-or-treating. Michael walks around and enters a house where he bludgeons a woman to death with a hammer before getting a knife, finds another woman and stabs her through the throat. So at this point, if we're counting, he's up to the same number of murders that he actually had committed, or more, or possibly 6 that he had committed in the first one. Yeah. So he's
sorry, he's making up for lost time. That's what I was going to say. Are you there? All right, so Moni is dropped. She's having technical difficulties with her internet, and me and Yardley are going to finish this out because we don't know when we'll be able to revisit it, and we want to get to you as soon as possible. So we're going to continue this. Vicky is babysitting a young boy. This is the granddaughter's friend. I think, what is her name? Karen? No, not Karen. What's the granddaughter's name? Do you remember?
No.
I can't remember. All right, so Vicky, her friend, is babysitting a boy who was freaking hysterical, by the way. Julian, do you remember? Oh my gosh, he was so funny. And puts him to bed as her boyfriend Dave comes over. Vicky and Dave start to hook up when they hear something coming from upstairs. Isn't that always when the murders happen? Like, never have sex or hook up while you're babysitting.
Absolutely.
She goes to the closet for real, and then sees Michael. Vicky tries to run, but Michael gets her and struggles to reel her in until he stabs her. Julian runs to get help. Dave grabs a knife and heads upstairs.
Julian was a great character, and the funny thing about him is he kind of does all of the things that we as a viewer would do, of like, hey, don't go up there, you're gonna die too.
That's exactly it.
That's exactly what he says to the boyfriend was, hey, don't go up there, you're going to get killed too. But once he bolts out of the door, they didn't even follow up, just showing that he was, that he was okay, did they? I don't remember seeing him
No,
again.
no, once he was gone, that was it. And I was kind of disappointed because seriously, he was adorable and hysterical. And yes, everything he says and the way he behaves is of what everybody would normally do, which is kind of the running joke when you're watching horror movies, that nobody ever reacts like that commercial, that Geico commercial where those kids are like running outside and the girl's like, let's go to the basement. And the girl's like, no, y'all, let's get into this running car. And then the guy's like, are you crazy? Let's go hide behind these rusty chainsaws. And like,
Yeah, exactly.
And they're all like, good idea.
But just as Julian was pretty much acting as the eyes and the mouthpiece of the audience, one of the things that I thought that he brought an even bigger highlight to is his presence actually had me more invested in what was going on with him than all of the other friends of the granddaughter. You know what I mean?
Totally.
None of those characters really made you kind of care. And I think the fact that the movie was self-aware as well as Julian, I thought that made his character pretty good.
Yeah, he was great. I wish they had brought more of him in because I thought he was awesome. Hawkins later arrives at the house and finds Vicky's body under a sheet, while Dave has been impaled through his head against the wall. Lori, who's been patrolling the streets looking for Michael, meets Sertain and calls him the new Loomis. She brings Kieran and Ray to her house to show her the bunker where they will hide in when Michael shows up. So go ahead, Yardley.
Well, Allison and Oscar are walking together until he drunkenly tries to kiss her. She ditches him. Oh, and this is something else because this is not in the note. So one of the reasons why Allison, who is the granddaughter that we couldn't remember the last couple of segments, the one thing that had me really tripping out is we know, at least initially, with them not knowing where she was, and we knew that they didn't know where she was because she didn't have her phone because her boyfriend was cheating on her and he threw her phone in dip. And I'm asking you, what fucking teenager is going to leave without their phone? I don't care if it's in dip. I don't care if it's in lava. They're going to get that fucking phone. I mean, is it just me? I mean, seriously.
No. I mean, I don't know if maybe because she was put into a predicament with him and he was being such a dick that she just got the fuck out of there.
She wasn't
I don't
in
know.
any danger. She was just
No,
mad.
he was just
You're
being
going
a
to
dick.
get your fucking phone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, fish it out with a scoop or something. I don't know, but definitely.
It was some onion dip. She'd have been okay. Yeah. But I was like, come on now. But I do like how they wanted to insert, Loomis into the movie however they could.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool. And also, I guess all of the nutrients that they were getting fed when he had impaled, basically, Vicky's boyfriend to the wall. I'm like, damn, you know what I'm saying? To get somebody to stay pent up with some sheetrock. I mean, come on.
Yeah, anyway. That was pretty. I thought that was pretty impressive as well, because you don't know what happens to him, and then all of a sudden you just see him impaled, hanging on a wall. So you're like,
yeah,
oh, okay.
But I wanted to see it though. You know what I mean? Like that was something else. I mean, was this movie rated PG-13?
I don't know. I'll check.
I really don't know. I wanted to say that it potentially had an R rating, but that was one of the things that kind of brought me down. Is I was really expecting to see a lot more gruesome stuff, and I didn't. But that was definitely
it's rated R.
Okay. Well, then that saddens me.
Now, for me, for me though, because I am so accustomed to seeing gore constantly, that was kind of that experience, because I almost kind of forgot about him for just a second. Like, oh yeah. And then to see him just hanging on the wall there was kind of startling for me. So I thought that was a cool way of finding out his death. I think it's a mixed bag. Some people want to see it, which I usually do, but I also felt like this was a different way of scaring somebody, like as a jump, like, because if he's got his knife and he's cornered him and it's coming, it's like, ooh, gross, that's cool. But then you knew it was coming. Whereas the guy's just walking around the house and then boom, there's just a dude hanging there with a knife in his head, was kind of like, whoa, like it was a different way to handle it.
And so that was the reason that led Oscar to end up getting up with Allison. And of course, with the with the breakup that I don't really think
Yeah.
that she really mentioned to him. He takes that as a sign that maybe she is, that she's into him. He tries to kiss her. She ends up ditching him, and motion sensors come on in the backyard. Oscar happens to think that it's, the neighbor that actually lives there, but the motion sensor went off because of Michael.
Yeah.
And yeah, that it was. I mean, I guess that was kind of some funny banter. I have to say, of all of Allison's friends, I have to say that he was probably the most annoying to me.
Oh.
I was hoping that he went first, but
He reminded me of somebody I do not like. And so, and he's an actor. And so the guy that I don't like, that I know who is an actor, and so I was like, oh, I hope he gets a good, because I can't stand that. He just reminded me of this one person. I was like, ugh. But
the fact that Oscar gets impaled on the gate, that's another thing. I really wanted to see that. And I think some of these things that they were doing, I think that there was definitely limitations, because I think the budget for the movie was only, I believe it was only like $10 million.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And
it's so funny, because back then, if the original Halloween had $10 million budget, can you even imagine? But now, that's so small.
Well, the original's budget was like $350,000, right?
That's crazy.
And they made millions of dollars off of that movie. So this one was made for $10 million. Yeah, well, it was made for 10, and it's projected for a $75 million opening weekend. So they definitely made their money back, which almost ensures that we're probably going to get, another one. But I think that budget constraints may be one of the reasons why they didn't necessarily go. And I know any of us, but hey, 10 million, you could have did less teenagers and just had more gruesome, demises for these people.
Yeah, that was kind of one of the complaints or several people complaining online, was there was too many plots happening in one movie. Like, they felt like there was unnecessary side stories when they could have kept maybe 2 or 3 going, So that was a lot of people's complaints. It didn't bother me, but people did complain about that.
Okay, well, Allison runs into the house after she sees Oscar has been dispatched. She calls for help. Hawkins arrives at the house, and Allison alerts him that Michael is out there. She rides with him and Sartain, and they find Michael, and Hawkins ends up ramming him with a car. Sartain goes near Michael's body and then stabs Hawkins in the throat. I think that we were kind of keyed off to where Sartain might have been a little bit more, more intimate motivation wise with his client. Like, we kind of find out that he's kind of fetishized this Michael. He's gotten so far into it that, he actually kind of praised himself and asked Michael about, hey, this is how it feels like to kill someone, which I thought was kind of an interesting twist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they kind of keyed us off to where he was probably going to go there back when Hawkins tries to hit him, and he's like, well, this prisoner is in the care of the state, which means they're protected. I'm like, first of all, the state don't give a damn about prisoners, and the fact that you're saying he can't be touched should have actually, gotten his antennas up. But
should have been a red flag.
Yeah, so unfortunately, and he essentially, after he hits Michael's down on the ground. He rushes over to take his pulse, and then he immediately says that, he's dead. And so I guess that was kind of, supposed to kind of take us aback, because after he kills Hawkins, he puts on the mask, and I was thinking, is this the way that the rest of the movie's going to go? Are they going to actually have Michael Myers be dead, and it actually is Dr. Sartain, who's the guy who's going to take up the mantle and kind of finish the movie out? Did you think that, or?
I didn't, because the reason why is he was, I don't think he's got it in him. I think he was looking at this as like kind of a petri dish thing. Like, he wanted to see Michael in this environment because he had studied him for so long. I didn't get the impression that he was officially wanting or going to take over his role per se. I just think 40 years of research and analyzing him, and not getting a word out of him. And then to finally see him in action, I think completely took this dude's brain. And it was kind of like, it reminded me of Alien whenever they let the monster loose in the ship to start incubating people, because they wanted like to see it in action. Aliens, I think it was the one. But anyway, that's what it kind of reminded me of, is letting people die just for the sake of seeing this person in action, I guess.
Well, so after Dr. Sartain puts on the mask and kind of fantasizes about being Michael, he ends up putting the body in the car, in the back of the police vehicle with Allison. And of course, over time, Michael ends up waking up. He kicks the cage in and basically slams Sartain's head against the steering wheel until he's dead. So Allison gets a chance to run off. Michael drags Sartain out and then stomps his head in the pudding.
Oh, so gross.
Yeah, stomps it in the water, so to speak. And, two other cops show up. They see Hawkins' car, and they go to investigate as Allison is running through the woods towards Laurie's house. So when you look at this scene where the other two cops show up, like, all of the protocols that they do are just totally, it just doesn't seem like they were following the right procedure for that type of situation. But I actually found that those cops were kind of funny when they were talking about the one cop's lunch, blah, blah, blah. That was a moment of levity when you knew that things were starting to, to get ramped up. But all in all of, at that part of the movie, did those scenes work for you? Was there anything that you saw coming? Or did you think that all of that was filler and wasn't necessarily necessary?
I thought it was good. I thought it was cute and funny when the two cops were talking about the bread, and he was like, one of them's clearly like a foodie, and then the other one only eats like peanut butter and jelly. And I got a couple of chuckles out of that where he's like, so I got you a special sandwich made, and they were just sitting there talking and then seeing, I can't tell what's going on. It was just far enough, of course, driving into their dooms while eating their peanut butter or whatever bread that he had it on. But I thought it was cute. Yeah.
They're not going to make nobody a special peanut butter banh mi, but I thought that was pretty.
I thought
cute. That it was pretty funny, though.
Yeah, but I thought the thing is I walked into this movie with zero expectations because I don't like slasher movies. So I went along for the ride and was pleasantly enjoyed it because I had no expectations at all. So none of this, I didn't overanalyze any of it. I enjoyed what it was, and I was just kind of like, yeah. I mean, there were a few times I'm like, what? So, but that was it. But yeah, no, I thought it was a great, you kind of wonder how the heck they're going to get Michael close to Laurie's house. Like, how is this all going to play out? It makes sense that they're, trying to get the granddaughter home, and it's all the pieces are coming together now. Now you've got them all in the vicinity of each other, and this is when okay, shit's about to go down.
Yeah, true that. Well, outside of Laurie's house, Ray sees the cop's car in front of it. He looks inside only to see them both killed with one cop's head used as a jack-o'-lantern. That was pretty.
That was crazy.
Yeah. That was a pretty neat little scene there. Ray is then found by Michael, who promptly kills him as well, because what do you do when you have the opportunity to be in a safe room? You walk your ass right outside and get, and get the brakes put on you. But Laurie knows that Michael is there at this point. She turns on all the security lights, keeps Karen in the bunker. As Laurie prepares herself, Michael breaks in through the door and he tries to strangle Laurie. She fires her gun. Michael lets go. Laurie goes outside and is attacked again by Michael. When Allison witnesses it, she shows up at the house and joins her mother in the bunker. Laurie and Michael start to look for each other throughout the house. They had a couple of suspenseful, parts where she's kind of like trying to, look inside the closets with the barrel of the gun to see if he's there, which is kind of funny to me because if you are trying to be prepared for someone who's in your house, and I think that this logic is kind of misguided. I'm going to have all the lights on. I want to be able to see, what's going on. And it seems like.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I was just saying it just seems like that was weird.
And here's the part that I was like, come on. Okay, so Karen and her daughter Allison are in the basement, and they're in the safe room or whatever it's called. You know, it's a hidden basement. Michael doesn't know where they are. He's walking around the house. He knows they've got to be somewhere, but he doesn't know where. So she fucking shoots through the floor. Like, can't see him, doesn't know where he is, but decides to randomly shoot him through the floor. Like, hey, here we are. So then he's trying to figure out how the heck they are down there, like how to get down there, knowing that's where they are now. Like, she totally gave away their safe room.
The other thing that I thought was hilarious was earlier when she was talking about her arsenal, she had mentioned that, you know, she prefers a revolver because a revolver doesn't jam. And it's funny that she's using the same Smith & Wesson Model 15 that Loomis used in the first movie, shooting Michael 6 times, and it didn't fucking kill him.
Exactly.
That is the fucking gun that she decides, you know, to be her preferred weapon of choice. So I found that kind of hilarious. But and I don't know if that was just a moment of I don't know if the writers were, if that was purposeful. I don't even know. I think it was probably an oversight, but
I think there is quite a few tongue-in-cheek moments because which I wouldn't have even known about if I hadn't just watched the original a couple of days ago. But one of them is like the original Halloween. Jamie Lee Curtis is sitting in the back of the classroom by the window, and she looks out the window, and Michael's standing there next to a car. And then she staring at her through, you know, from across the street. And she looks down and then she looks up and he's gone. And then the same thing happened at the beginning of this movie where her granddaughter's staring out the window. And instead of Michael, it's Jamie Lee Curtis standing there. But it's same stance, same look on her face and everything. And I thought that was kind of funny.
They did that. They definitely gave a lot of nods. Now now as Laurie is going through the house, kind of checking room to room, she ends up finding Ray, which is her daughter's husband. He steps inside a cabinet. So Michael then lunges out and attacks Laurie. She continues to fight him off, and then Michael ends up finding the bunker, pries it open. Karen calls for Laurie, pretending to be afraid, and I thought that this was a great. She was really acting like she was afraid, and of course, killers, and Michael feeds off of fear. And when he thinks that it's safe to go down because she's lost her shit, she pretty much fakes him out, and then she shoots him in the side of the head. And I thought that was pretty cool. And then Laurie pushes Michael down in the bunker. Karen and Allison run out. Michael ends up grabbing Allison by the leg. He gets stabbed in the arm. Laurie then triggers a trap that keeps Michael in the bunker as she had planned all along. It turns on the gas. And as Michael is about to get roasted alive, she says her goodbye, and she runs out with Karen and Allison. Now, I mean, do we have to burn down the house? Like, do we really have to, like...
Apparently, this motherfucker doesn't want to die, so yeah, I guess you do. I don't know what else is the answer
I actually had put in the notes. I was like, with me, I'm like, man, you know, I spent years paying off this house. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to keep him caged in there, and then I'm going to carbon monoxide poison his ass. Yeah. And then we're just going to tote his dead body out. I've still got my house, and everything's all to the good. But that definitely goes to show you the extremes that Laurie has gone to, preparing for something that there was a 99.99% chance would not happen. But I think the image of her daughter, and her granddaughter, all of which, through their strained relationship in the past, they're all in this exact same place emotionally. Now the daughter finally gets it, why the mother was so obsessed with being prepared for that situation. Yeah. Now the granddaughter really gets it, why her grandmother did it. But also it kind of makes, I think Karen, I kind of think it probably makes her look the weakest, because now the daughter's looking at the grandmother like, hey, you was right. The daughter's saying you were right. And then the mother is like, hey, I've been doing everything I can to kind of distance myself from this crazy woman, so she kind of looks like the odd woman out. And of course, at the end, they focus in on the granddaughter with the knife in her hand. So I know that they're probably going to try to play the PTSD card with her as well. I don't know
if you know what's going to happen.
She's going to be the killer.
Yes!
Yeah, I mean, it's so obvious. Yeah, I mean, they totally set it up that way. Yeah. And they actually, you know, depending on the projections and the money that's made this week, they don't have an excuse, especially having only spent $10 million on this one, to not kind of up the ante on more graphic material. So I'm just more curious about what the box office is going to be, what the legs is going to have.
Right.
You know what I mean? I totally expect a 60-something% drop off.
You do?
Yeah, at least 50. I don't see it. I don't see this movie. I mean, it's possible. You know what I mean? Like I said, we just have to see. I don't necessarily want to.
I think it'll stay until after Halloween, and then it'll tank down hardcore.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely going to drop at least 40, because that's not unheard of. Most movies, even the big blockbusters, drop. You know what I mean?
Do you have anything else big coming out next week?
You know what? I absolutely am not sure, and that might help it. I mean, hey, for me, I hope it makes a ton of money, because the more money it makes, the more that they're going to invest, you know, in next installment, you know. Yeah. But I think what they have to do, and that's one of the reasons why they signaled at the end that the daughter might end up becoming a killer, is just flat out, you can't milk an old ass Michael Myers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
As the years go on, so you're going to have somebody to take up that mantle that literally has fresh legs. But for me, if this is the last time that I have to see Michael Myers, I'm kind of disappointed, to be honest.
I'm ready. It needs to go. I think it's definitely, I'm ready for a change. I've been through his, you know, like, I'm tired of seeing it. I think there could be something better. I thought they did a great job with this movie. I was very pleasantly surprised. I wasn't prepared to like it. I don't like these types of movies anyway. I mean, I'll watch them and they're great, but I'm not like, ooh, yes, you know, when they come out. So I'm ready for him. He's old. It's time for him to go. So I'm excited about it. I think there's really nothing coming out next week, so they might get lucky and be number one again. But not with as much as it is, but yeah.
And when you look at, you know, when the movie was opening night for the movie, Thursday or Friday? Thursday night, yeah. So Friday morning, you know, Rotten Tomatoes and other sites, its Rotten Tomatoes score was like around 85%. So Sunday, it was down to 80, 77 rotten, 173 fresh. So after another week, we'll see if it drops into the 70s.
Yeah, because then you've got, I don't think it's going to move too much more. I mean, it might go into the 70s. IMDb has it at like 7.6, which is pretty high for a horror movie. But I think it's pretty solid. I actually corralled a bunch of people after the movie in the theater and walked up to them and was like, what did you think? Like, what were your thoughts about the movie? Everybody loved it. Everybody. They were all like, oh, it was awesome. So as picky as we all are, there was one guy that was like, it was kind of cheesy. But everybody else loved it. I talked to older guys and girls and younger guys and girls, and they all had the same opinion. My husband even went, and he even enjoyed it, which he doesn't even watch horror. Yeah. So I think overall, we're kind of picky because we watch 1 billion horror movies a month, but most people are loving it.
Yeah, but for me, I'm like you. I went in with low expectations. I just expected it to be a lot more violent and, you know, if it's a slasher, you know, go all in. And I don't like I don't know. That was probably the most disappointing thing for me. I have to say, if anything, I mean, the other things that I noticed was like the font. They were using the exact same font that they used, you know, in the title screen and all of that stuff that they used in the first movie. And when we were talking about nods earlier, and you were talking about positionings that were the exact same of certain characters in certain situations, And I think the biggest one that I remembered was, remember when Loomis had shot Michael 6 times, he fell out of the house, hit the ground. He goes over to look, Michael's there. He goes and checks on Laurie, comes back and he's gone. And then they did the opposite with Michael, hitting Laurie, her falling out, Michael looking out, her on the ground. Michael goes back, does something, comes back, and she's gone. So I thought that was kind of cool. I think the only misses of the movie, for the most part for me, was just that I would have liked to have spent more time with the families instead of them inserting all of the teenagers. But I get why. I get why they had to add the teenagers, because quite frankly, if you look at the structure of the film, there just was nobody else for them to kill off, really. It had to be the teenagers. So I kind of get that, but I definitely, at least from an acting standpoint, it would have been nice to have seen, the family dynamic a little bit more, and to kind of see how it's downward slide. Outside of that, not getting that and too much teenagers, I thought that the film was pretty solid, but it's definitely, the story is not going to blow you away. You know what I mean?
No.
I think you have to know what you're getting when you go in. And if you've got low expectations, you probably came out saying, it was all right. If you really love the franchise, and I'm curious to hear from people who really love this franchise with how, how they feel about it. Yeah. Because I think that most of the mixed opinions are probably going to go come from the hardcore Halloween.
I agree. That's why probably I enjoyed it more than maybe people that were hardcore Halloween fans, because you're either gonna love it that they did so many nods to the original Halloween, or you're not gonna like that, and you're gonna have wished for something a little bit more like original but still playing off of it. I also asked some of the people in the theater, did you feel like this movie could stand alone, or do you feel like you absolutely need to see the original Halloween? And everybody said you should see the original Halloween, no question. So that was an interesting answer. They were all like, no, you got to see the original one, because so many different nods that you just wouldn't get.
But you don't need those nods to enjoy this movie. So you don't really have to have seen it. And let's see. Oh, actually, something else that was in the notes when they were talking about, and I actually noticed this at the beginning, is when they were walking and he was talking about the rumor about Michael and Laurie being brother and sister, and they was like, nah, that was just a rumor, which is something that they obviously did in one of the other installments of Halloween, which is kind of a sign kind of ran out of ideas. But I think it's better that they aren't related, because it seems like we're close to running I don't know. I don't want to say in a tomfoolery territory, because hey, that's what you do in these movies. But do you think the fact that they went ahead and kind of retconned that out of there, was that something that y'all liked, or you preferred for it to be where they were not related?
Yeah, I don't want them to be related. I'm glad they settled that. That just would not make sense. So I'm glad that they were kind of like cramming that into this movie. Like, we're not going to play off of that stuff. We're sticking to the original, and we're not going to deal with all the crazy storylines from all the other B sequels that went out for the next 30 years,
And they totally put that in there for the people who were interested in the other installments. If I had never seen a Halloween movie, I don't, that wouldn't have moved the needle one way or the other. But as far as this movie was structured, all in all, I think my favorite parts were the podcasters getting killed, of course, Julian and the babysitter scenes, and the doctor after he kills Hawkins and puts on the mask. Because that was kind of, that was a really, I don't know. It was just one of those moments where you're like, oh my God, are they going to actually, take this in another direction? My weakest, once again, it was the teenagers, not enough gore. I think that Laurie could have been featured way more, even with or without her family. And really outside of that, what I'm saying, all in all, I think I'd give this horror movie a 7 out of 10. I definitely wanted more. And maybe if I would have had if I would have felt a different way going in, that score possibly could have been lower. But for everything that I got, the matinee price, a 7 out of 10 pretty much suits me.
Yeah, I agree. But a 7 out of 10 for me for slasher horror is high because I don't normally dig these types of movies. I was, like I said, pleasantly surprised. I didn't focus a lot on the shortcomings that you guys did, but I think that's why we all talk about this stuff, because we all saw different weak points that are not this, that aren't the same. So for me, the weak point was the bus crash, because come on, you don't get out of the fucking car, especially if you've got a kid. I just thought that was ridiculous. As much as I loved the babysitting scene, I also couldn't understand why he was over there in the first place. Like, out of the entire town, you've somehow pinpointed that she's somehow related to Laurie's family in some way. Like, it just, for me, was far-fetched. But I loved the scene. I just couldn't understand why he's going after this one person that's an offset that isn't even near Allison at the time. Like, the other guys I could understand because they were around her in her orbit when he was going after her. So they were kind of just, got in the way. Her, I was kind of like, why is he there? Like, how did he get there? The guy who walks really fucking fast, apparently, because he can just show up, like, all over town and randomly kill people that were characters of the movie. So that was kind of a weak point for me, but I loved the babysitting scene. So it was kind of a weird, like, how is he there and why? But I loved Julian. He made the whole movie for me. He was hysterical. Wish I could have seen more of him. The solid parts for me was the babysitting scene, but also I loved the end, like how they took him out. I thought was really solid. I liked that because so many times with these movies it's underkill, and she just went straight up overkill, and I'm like, yes, queen, yes, this is how you kill a psycho, and you see her daughter's life training kick in. Something that she had just suppressed for so long is now like a badass because she's like, oh yeah, I've been trained, I can fucking do this, So I thought that was really solid, how that all kind of those dominoes fell into place. I thought the movie overall was good. You guys had started texting before I went and saw it, and I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna have to fucking pay to watch a piece of shit, and I'm gonna be pissed. But I was pleasantly surprised. I walked out of there kind of like, yeah, that was good. They did it right. I thought they did it right. I thought everything went well. Yeah. I thought the guy hanging from the wall was excellent. So I give it a 7, and that for me in slasher is high. So
yeah, you know what? All in all, I think what they're looking for. We all know that the movie entertainment industry is a business, and this franchise has the potential after this weekend to have made a lot of money. Of course, they're going to want to make more, but they're going to have to do some things in the future to make this franchise enough for people to want to come back. Because as we all know, people can start giving you the thumb down really quickly, and your film can bomb. So I don't know if this franchise, to be honest, can probably survive without Michael Myers, the specter of Michael Myers. It has to be more than a specter of Michael Myers. I don't know what the hell they're going to do unless they try to do a continuation of this. Of course, the time jump can't be astronomical if they want to use Michael Myers again. I have zero idea how they can make it with him having made it out of that. Like, I just don't.
They can't.
They can't. They absolutely can't. I mean, as a matter of fact, as much as I think that they need Michael Myers to carry on the franchise, to be honest with you, I don't know if my excitement level would be the same to go and watch a movie about the granddaughter becoming the slasher. I just don't know if I'll be that interested.
I think they could maybe do something pretty interesting with that. So I'd have to wait and see. But I think if they pick the granddaughter, what a fucking trip for the grandma. I mean, to go through and spend your whole life preparing and finally kill this monster who has been, such a huge piece of your life. And to see then the person that you love, unconditionally turn into that monster would be a really interesting way to continue it. but I think she would have to have her own character and not be like Michael.
Well,
You know what I mean? She can't
but
become Michael. She needs to be her own character
how
and
fast?
play off it that way.
But how fast would they have to kick it out? I mean, look, for the franchise to be viable long term, there's going to have to be a future that doesn't have Laurie or Michael in it. And I don't know, how can you call it Halloween without those two people?
I think they can include Laurie. I think if they did it in like 2 years, but they can make it a little bit further ahead, but put it out in like 2 years where she's like a mom, like the granddaughter's now like a mom or going into college or, you know, like doing, and then these just urges or something start taking her over, and almost kind of like Raw, where, you know, something triggers her and brings it out of her in a weird way, you know? Not, she wouldn't be eating people, but she would be, that would like, something happens to her that triggers this piece of her to where she starts killing people. And then like the news coming out that these crimes are happening, and the grandma's like, this sounds like, you know, like a Halloween triggers her and she starts killing people. And, you know, grandma's reading it on the news going, what the hell? He's dead. Like, how is this happening? Like, that would be kind of a cool way to parlay this into a different story, but Halloween, you know, a Halloween movie. So we'll see.
Well, we're definitely going to see, because the box office is, it seems like, at least for a couple of weeks, is definitely going to be kind. They've already made their money back hand over fist, you know, this one weekend. So we're definitely going to have to wait and see what the future will hold. But the one thing that I think that we could all agree on is that part of that future is going to be another installment of the Halloween franchise. So we've given our scores. So I think that the only thing that's really left for us to do, Christy, how can people find you on social media?
Well, real quick, I want to do, so this week I did a poll on Twitter asking people what is their go-to movie they watch every year for Halloween. I put, you know, the choices were Halloween, the movie, something paranormal, something slasher, something zombie, something slasher that's not Halloween. 54% chose Halloween movie as their go-to, which I thought was interesting because that's not what I watch on Halloween. I watch ghost shit. So people do go back every Halloween and watch Halloween for their go-to movie. 19% said paranormal, 19% said slasher, and 8% said zombie. And 48 people voted. There's still one day left, but I have a feeling it's kind of got lost into the feed, so we're not going to see much more activity on it. But so interesting that I would have been the 19% in the paranormal. What's your go-to, Yardley?
Yeah, I would have probably gone more towards a slasher. A slasher movie. That's what I think of. Honestly, when I think of Halloween, I do think of the Freddy Kruegers and the Jason Voorhees and you know, the Michael Myers. So I would probably go towards that because at least, I mean, honestly, I'm more of a fan of suspenseful horror, like the Hereditary type stuff.
Yeah.
I'm more of a fan of that type of stuff because for me, I think suspense gets me a lot more than trying to get me to jump scare. That's really hard to do. But I mean, it's possible. But I just like the suspense aspect. But I definitely would go towards slasher for a Halloween type.
Yeah. Cool.
So
also,
what social media? Or you got something else?
Well, I just want to say what I'm doing next week. I'm going to do the top 10 most horrific crimes committed on Halloween. So that's what next week's show will be about, and it's going to drop on Halloween, so that's exciting. My social media is Creepin_it on Twitter and Creepin Christy on Instagram. So come follow me. Say hello. I say hello back.
And you can follow me on Twitter at militant_marker. And once again, it's been a great pleasure doing this podcast, especially this time of year. I've dove into The Haunting of Hill House, which both of you have probably already finished it, right?
Yeah, I'm finished. It was a slow burn. It took me a little bit to get into it.
It did. You want me to tell you when it got me? It got me the episode, what was it, the crooked neck lady?
Yes.
Episode, that one, the broke neck lady or whatever.
Yes.
the 2 episodes, that episode and the episode after it, yeah, that was pretty. That's what kind of got me, because I thought that was some really good storytelling, and maybe
Yes.
That's definitely a series once I finish that I will definitely would be down to us kind of diving into more, whether that be through Patreon or just, a regular thing. I definitely feel like it's something that we as a team probably need to talk about to actually do it justice.
I agree. And I think that's about when I really started to understand kind of what they were doing with the show. It was kind of confusing for me. Like, okay, I get it. Like, these people used to live there. There's a lot of drama with the family. And I was kind of like, what's going on? But then the crooked neck thing came and I'm like, oh, shit. Okay.
That whole, and it's kind of funny because a lot of the things, at least in this series, that rallied the family they got rallied, or just like you said, things got put together from that episode. But I thought that it just made her character, to me, just seem more tragic. Because, like,
yeah, it was horrible.
The thing that happened with her, with her, her therapist / boyfriend that ends up being her husband. And then it was just one of those things where sometimes you just can't get a break. So I really started falling into it, because that story arc in particular, those 2 episodes, were 2 of the strongest for me. Now, I might be saying something different when I watch the last couple, but I definitely recommend this to all of the creepers. If you're not, it's on Netflix. It's something that you have to definitely, as Christian mentioned, it's a slow burn at first, but if you hang in there, there's going to be some episodes that are going to kind of suck you in, or at least suck you in to the point where you'll at least want to finish it. So that's another recommendation, but I'll definitely be down to talk about this some more with you, Amanda.
Yeah, we'll do it. Let's commit to it. And so everybody, make sure you watch. So when we start talking about it for the episode, y'all can listen along and know what we're talking about. So,
all right. And, with all that being said, Creepin Real, y'all. And we will, I guess you'll hear from us again on Halloween Day. So that's what's up.
All right. Creep it real, y'all. Bye.